Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's get started. Good afternoon to you all, to our distinguished speakers, colleagues joining from across Uzbekistan and across the world. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for being here with us at this Tashkent International Investment Forum session on creative industries. Our session today is called Creative Industries and Cultural Economy, an Emerging Investment Class. So if we were having this conversation at an investment forum like this one, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, culture might seem quite out of place to discuss at an investment forum. You may think, why are we talking about culture when the forum's about investment? For many, many years in most of the world, culture was viewed through a purely artistic lens, or it was viewed through a philanthropic lens. Most countries, viewed culture as something very important, something to be protected, but it was something that cost money rather than something that made money. It was something that was supported through government money, through grants, or through philanthropic grants, rather than something that created its own economic returns. But in recent years, over the past 10, 15 years, we've seen a real shift in how countries around the world have viewed culture and creativity. And artists themselves, and governments, and investors have started to see the creative economy for what it is, which is a multi-trillion-dollar industry. An industry that constitutes more than 7% of global GDP. An industry that employs more than 12% of the global workforce. And an industry that attracts real investor interest. And today, amidst increasing economic turmoil around the world, nations worldwide are seeking to diversify their economies, they're seeking to build the resilience of their economies, and they're seeking to create high-value employment, meaningful employment for their young people, and employment which is, as much as it is possible to be today, future-proof. And for all these reasons, strategic investment in the creative sector is becoming a better and better bet. And it's becoming more central to long-term national development strategies. And on this point, I think Uzbekistan is no exception. We all know Uzbekistan is going through an incredible period of transformation. Over the past 10 years, we've seen phenomenal economic growth. We've seen incredible economic reforms that have opened up and diversified the economy. We've also seen real investment in urban development. We've seen investment in infrastructure, including a big investment in digital infrastructure. We've seen a lot of really supportive policies from the government to support the creative economy, positioning culture in Uzbekistan as a pillar of diversification, as a pillar of soft power, culminating recently in the issuing of a creative economy law, plans for a dedicated creative economy park. And all of this is happening in a country that combines two really special things. It combines one of the world's greatest ancient cultures and heritages, a heritage in literature and in architecture and in music and in design and in handicrafts that goes back centuries, and that combined with also an incredibly vibrant and exciting contemporary art scene, a contemporary music scene, and lots of exciting things happening in the digital art space. So that combination of the ancient heritage, the modern vibrant arts, the supportive policy environment, the economic growth and diversification and reform are all combining to mean that investment in the creative economy in Uzbekistan is an incredibly exciting opportunity. The potential of the creative economy in Uzbekistan is really limitless, and I think the potential to position Uzbekistan as a leading creative and innovation hub, not just in Central Asia, but globally, is really a great opportunity. So our objective over the next 90 minutes or so, 80 minutes, is to map out how we can harness this power of culture and creativity to drive economic growth. How can we transition creative and cultural sectors from grant-reliant ecosystems into self-sustaining asset classes capable of attracting private capital and driving significant economic reform? So we're going to examine international public-private partnership, we're going to examine regional development strategies, and we're going to look at the structural reforms that are needed to position Uzbekistan as a leading creative, cultural, and innovation hub. To help us unpack all of these themes, we have a great panel representing a real diversity of viewpoints. We've got colleagues from a public policy perspective. We've got colleagues who are looking at this from a more urban development perspective. We've got colleagues who are addressing this from a cultural tourism perspective. And we have colleagues from the commercial creative sector themselves. So let me introduce the panel now. Our first panelist is Azizbek Manapov, who's the first deputy chair of the Uzbekistan Art and Culture Development Foundation, the ACDF. The ACDF is the primary state institution in Uzbekistan responsible for fostering the national creative economy, preserving cultural heritage, managing contemporary art, facilitating international artistic exchange, and more and more. Azizbek has worked with the foundation with ACDF since 2021, and in his current role, he's responsible for shaping the national agenda for cultural infrastructure, creative entrepreneurship across Uzbekistan. Thanks very much for being with us, Azizbek. Next, I'm going to finish introducing. Our next panelist is Marwan Abudib, who's the founder and CEO of Takuma. So Marwan's work is on cities, focuses on the intersection of design, technology, and real estate. Since 2015, Marwan has led the Takuma initiative, which advises global markets on, amongst other things, how culture and creative districts build competitive and talent-attracting cities. Our next panelist is Dmitry Fedyonin, who works at the ECM Group as the Business Development Director for Central Asia and MENA. With over 2 decades experience in infrastructure and industrial project management across major multinationals, Dmitry now spearheads the ECM Group's regional growth, and he's got a particular focus on how infrastructure and major events and cultural tourism can drive sustainable economic development. And finally, our panelist is Otabek Suleimanov, who's the CEO of the Stahia Festival. So since 2017, the Stahia Festival has become one of Central Asia's most distinctive cultural events, a music festival, a cultural festival, but also a high-profile platform for regional tourism, for place branding, and for investment. And Otabek is, by night, a festival manager and an electronic musician, and by day, he's a lawyer maintaining a parallel career as a partner at the Kinstella law firm. So please, everyone, join me in welcoming our 4 panelists to this event. I should also, have introduced myself. So I'm Michael Houlgate. I'm the British Council's Director in Uzbekistan, and I lead our work across Central Asia. And before handing over to our panelists, I'll just reflect briefly on this theme of the creative economy from the point of view of the British Council. The British Council in Uzbekistan and in Central Asia is an organization that's primarily known for delivering English language qualifications. So if that's the way you know us, you may not be so aware of our work on the creative economy, but the British Council has been working on creative economy for over 2 decades. The UK was actually one of the very first countries in the world to take creative industries seriously as an economic proposition. Going back to the 1990s, there were policies to map the sector, to measure its contribution, and to build policy that supports the growth of the creative sector. And that deliberate policy approach has resulted over the past 30, 40 years in an incredible transformation in the contribution that the creative industries make to the overall economy of the United Kingdom. Today, the British Council's role is to carry out that conversation internationally, sharing our policy experience and helping countries to build the structural conditions for creative economies to grow. One of the things that we've learnt over this period, more than 2 decades of working on the creative industries, is that translating creative potential into economic activity requires solving some very specific problems that maybe other sectors of the economy don't have to deal with. Creative assets are much harder to value than a lot of other assets. If you're used to valuing real estate or mining, then it's much easier to do than putting a value to creative assets. IP frameworks, intellectual property frameworks, take time to build in contexts that haven't been used to having them, and it takes time to build a culture of intellectual property. Early stage finance is very difficult to structure when institutional capital doesn't yet have reliable tools for how to assess risks around the creative industries. And so addressing all of this and getting an enabling environment right that allows us to address this is really key to turning creative potential into economic growth. Last year, the British Council produced a report mapping the creative industries in Uzbekistan and developing some recommendations for what needs to be worked on in order to further strengthen the creative economy in Uzbekistan. And the report came up with 4 key areas that we think really need to be focus areas if the creative industries and creative economy is to be strengthened. And I'll just very quickly run through these 4 areas before handing over to the panelists, just as a way of further framing the discussion. And it'll be interesting to see how the experience and views of the panelists overlap with these 4 areas or not. So the first area that this British Council report looked at was skills and talent. We know that Uzbekistan is a country that is overflowing with raw creative talent. If you look at the talent and the skills of young people from a creative point of view, there is no shortage of talent. But sometimes there can be gaps in the other skills that are needed to turn that creative talent into economic growth. Business skills. How do you develop a business proposal? How do you pitch an investor? Skills around digital production, skills around IP literacy. These are currently constraints on growth, and they're things that need to be addressed through concerted capacity building efforts. The next area was policy and ecosystem. We know, certainly from the UK experience, that creative industries don't grow by accident. They need coordinated policy, they need regulation, they need accessible finance mechanisms in order to foster the creative, a thriving creative economy. The first speaker we'll hear from in just a minute from the ACDF will tell us a little bit about what's already going on in this area in Uzbekistan. The third area that the report looked at was placemaking. So creative industries grow through clusters, and this is another real lesson from the UK experience. When talented people and cultural infrastructure and businesses and investment and visitors all come together in the same place and interact together in the same place, that creates a really powerful ecosystem that drives forward creative growth and economic growth. So how do we build these places, creative places? And then the fourth area was global connectivity, building the pipelines and partnerships and platforms that get creative output seen and respected and traded internationally. So these are the four areas that our report looked at as needing work on in order to build a really, really thriving creative economy. And we'll turn now to our speakers to hear a little bit about maybe how their experience fits in with any of these, with these areas. So we're going to hear first from Aziz Beck from the ACDF. So Aziz Beck, ACDF has been doing really incredible work over the past several years to drive reforms, to boost cultural infrastructure, to push Uzbekistan's culture onto the global stage. It would be great if you could maybe talk a little bit about what this work is, and looking ahead to the next 5 years, talking a little bit about what your next priorities are. What are the key priorities for further developing the country's creative economy? And perhaps if you could highlight a few of the key initiatives that you're working on with the ACDF to further develop the creative economy.
Sure. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Michael. And I would like to, within the framework you mentioned, I would like to highlight several aspects on which we are working on, and especially the overall policies and main, let's say, aims which are set up for us from our leadership, and what we see as a great potential for the growth of creative economy. Because indeed, as you said, maybe 10 years ago, that could be something difficult to discuss, but now we see that in this overall stream of reform and change in the country, we have a great potential in the creative industries, especially because of the heritage we have in all ways. We can describe it, starting from the architecture, starting from the tradition of applied arts, craftsmanship, music, literature, everything creative and everything connected to culture and arts. There is a great tradition and great heritage we have, and based on which we can develop it further through the particular mechanisms and policies we are trying to implement on the state level, and of course with the close partnership with the private sphere. So if I may, I will define that last 2 years ago, in 2024, we had adopted the law on creative economy, which became the comprehensive legal framework for our strategy and how we institutionally will support the creative industries here. And I should mention that in 2024 we successfully organized the World Conference on Creative Economy, in which British Council was one of the main partners and supporters of our actions. And when we were working on the law on creative economy, that was, of course, when we initiated for the first time, it was something not easy, and we tried to do it in a way that it will be, again, communicated and done in partnership with the private sphere. That's why I know Otebek better than the lawyer, better as a lawyer than the festival organizer, because we had several discussions at that time to when we were drafting the law. And now, 2 years since that period, we even further we have a stronger legal framework because the presidential resolution 64 was adopted this February, and right now, based on it, we are working on the creative parks, which is very much in line with what you said. Indeed, we need to create the spaces for the creative business and people to gather somewhere and to create together. And for that very reason, we are, as Art and Culture Development Foundation, and again, with the help of our partners, we are working on the creative parks in Tashkent, in a creative park in Nukus, where, for example, some of the we are reconstructing the existing pavilion there, and we are bringing our expo pavilion from Osaka, which we had last year. So it will become really a creative hubs for these cities in Tashkent and in Nukus, but we will develop it further. So the idea and the goal is to have them in each region of the country to create this kind of creative parks and institutions. And if we talk about the very specific goals, if now in Uzbekistan, by the numbers of 2024, the value of GDP for the creative industries is 3.7%. Our goal is to reach 5% by 2030 and create more than 500 jobs in the sector, which I believe very much realistic, and we are working in this direction, again, with our partners. But overall, what I want to say that if we talk about culture and with what you started in the beginning, we see that it's not something constant. And in the vision of leadership of the country, and with the support of our president, we really created this great infrastructure and policy base for its further development. And based on this tradition again and heritage, we are opening up the potential of our young people and creative communities. Yes, so this is the main, let's say, target and strategic goals which we are trying to reach, and we will reach, I'm sure, by 2030. Maybe again, in the framework of what you said, of these four, let's say, main aspects in your roadmap, which I believe is very helpful also for us, I would like also to touch and talk a bit about our projects, of the foundation, which we were developing and implementing mainly for the support and skill development of the local artists, local creators. And if we talk about one of the biggest projects we had, which indeed combines all of these elements, I would like to mention first Bukhara Biennial, which was held last year in Bukhara, where we transferred the historical part of the town. We had a lot of infrastructural works, we had restoration works, and we basically created a space for the exhibition, for the events, for any kind of creative activity. And during more than 2.5 months, that was really one of I believe, the longest event and festival in the country, where we gathered, exhibited the art pieces of more than 70 artists from different parts of the world, starting from big names like Anthony Gormley and the young starting photographers or artists or artisans in Bukhara. But what is really important that during that period, more than 3,000 people in the creative sphere were activated with different kind of jobs and tasks, because obviously this kind of event and this kind of scale of production requires all types of jobs there. I mean, the let's say the requirement we put in the very beginning with our curatorial team was that each and every artistic project will imply the local collaborator, what we say, and by which we mean creative practitioner, whether it's musician, artisan, videographer, whatever, but they were required to have from someone from Uzbekistan, and all of the 70 art pieces were created and produced in Uzbekistan. So by that, we really wanted to push the creative industries here, and I believe we succeed, and now we are in a strong preparation for the next one in 2027. Recently we announced the new curator, and I believe we will have another big success in Bukhara. And obviously, if we talk briefly about indirect effect of all of this, we can talk about the urban development and how the city changed, how the overall urban development of the historical town was transformed, and how the local business had really a great benefit from that, like local hotels, local restaurants. And now, whenever I'm in Bukhara, we are in a close communication with all of those people, because they want to prepare in a better way for the next one and have a better outcome after the biennial. So this is one of the examples what we do, and this is in line with what we do in the country and in different regions of the world. And the main idea, of course, is to support local talent and really to create all of the conditions for their development. So this is the overall, let's say, framework of what we are working as a Art and Culture Development Foundation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aziz Bek. And let me also just say, if any of you here weren't lucky enough to get to attend the 2025 Bukhara Biennale, then if ever you need an excuse to come back to Uzbekistan, make sure you come for 2027, because it really is an incredible spectacle to see this amazing contemporary art integrated into this beautiful old architecture from Bukhara. And I think what I was saying at the start about one of Uzbekistan's strengths is combining these two, the ancient traditions with a very vibrant contemporary art scene. And I think the Bukhara Biennale really encapsulates the two, the old and the new really beautifully. So I'm already looking forward to 2027. Thank you, Aziz Bek. Now, our next panelist is Marwan Abu Dib. So Marwan, you work at Tukuma, and you work on cities, right? So you look at how cities can leverage art and culture, as well as digital technologies, to build the urban spaces of the future. So it would be great if you could sort of reflect a little bit on your work, and having worked over various different contexts and countries, developing these creative clusters or innovation districts as a way of developing cities, what are some of the big lessons that you've learned, and what might other cities around the world, emerging cities around the world, take from your experience? What lessons might they learn, especially here in Uzbekistan, how to use creativity and culture to build future-ready, competitive cities?
Hello. Okay, great. Thank you so much, Michael, for that. Yeah, I think we're facing a pretty transformational moment in humanity, especially with the rise of AI technology. And we always think that technology is what makes cities, but that's not true, because the future of cities actually relies on people. And how can we upskill those people, or how can we provide a platform for those people to thrive, ideate, innovate? And if the future economy relies on innovation, then pretty much innovation comes from the people that make it. And people are looking for places that inspire them. And that's what we focus on at Tecuma, is how do we create these innovation districts, tech districts, and creative districts. Pretty much our focus really is not just industry specific, but really how do we create a neighborhood. We were just at the panel before this on special economic zones, and they were talking about how Uzbekistan has 47, and everyone's competing for talent. And that's the big issue right now. Cities are competing for talent. Talent can move wherever they want to. And they're not moving because a city has, I don't know, great GDP per capita. They're going because they want to go to a place that actually inspires them, where the culture is strong, where they feel a sense of belonging. I was born and raised in Dubai, and I was inspired by what the city did, right? It took a desert and it created one of the fastest growing cities in the world. They did that through economic zones, but what they did really is attract talent. Yes, they had tax incentives and many other things, and at some point they were lacking on the cultural dimension. But today, Dubai is a fun city. They focus on lifestyle, and that's what culture does. Culture creates an identity for a place. And it's very important to not see it as an add-on, as a decorative piece, but it really is the soul and foundation of what the world is all about. It's about people, and how do we bring people together, and how do we retain that talent. So we as a company started at MIT. I was doing my graduate studies in real estate development and architecture, teamed up with a professor, and we started a company focused on city making. Now, MIT is quite known for being one of the premier innovation hubs, but really it's Kendall Square right next to MIT, where MIT was the developer of the largest biotech cluster in the world. One lesson that's very important is we need to focus on what is going to happen in this district. Like, what are we going to make? Instead of thinking of consumption, how do we think of making? So Kendall Square decided on biotech, and biotech became that focus. So when we think of all these special economic zones, we need to think, what is the theme that we'd like to focus on? It could be virtual reality, it could be blockchain, it could be AI. There's so many things. But it's very important to see what the story is. Why would people want to be here, and what are we going to make here? What kind of industry? And we've worked on many projects globally. I will share a bit more on some of these reference projects. But one of our most successful built projects is the Seoul Digital Media City. It took a former landfill garbage site and transformed it into what basically is one of the most powerful districts that is shaping South Korea's economy. The Korean government decided that culture was going to be a focus of theirs. And they, as we all know, they exported Korean culture from music, TV shows. You have 20,000 companies. You have about 80,000 people based out of the Seoul Digital Media City. And it contributes a sizable amount to the Korean economy. It's not small. Per year, it contributes up to $10 billion, $10 billion. And the reason this happened was a mix of policy as well. They forced every real estate developer to open up their lobbies, the ground floor, instead of privatizing it, to invite people in so that it's part of the public realm. And that was very important. That was a very big policy because it allowed more ideation to happen. And when we think of innovation districts or creative districts, innovation always happens in a place. It's not a Zoom call, it's not on a Teams call. We're social beings. We would like to have a conversation, have a coffee. When you bring different disciplines together, people with different backgrounds, that's where you create that fusion of ideation. That's where you create that spark. When someone who's studying physics bumps into someone who has a biology background, they start to connect dots and something great happens. So what they did in Seoul, or what we did in Seoul, is we actually focused on the public realm. That we did not neglect the public realm as an essential piece to drive innovation. And what's wonderful right now is everyone knows about South Korea through its culture. It's quite incredible. I mean, BTS, boy band, selling out stadiums in the United States. So this is something that Uzbekistan should focus on. Not copying Seoul, not copying Dubai, is looking at what is its true, authentic identity. What is Uzbekistan's story? Sure, we have the ancient Silk Route, but can we build on that? And what is the future of Uzbekistan? It always will be by focusing on its youth. What do the youth want to do? Where do they want to be? How do they want to live? The big challenge of these IT parks that we're seeing is that they follow 20th century models. They just focus on companies and factories, but not really much on quality of life. What's the walkability? Lifestyle today is very different than lifestyle 20 years ago. Oh my God, lifestyle 3 years ago was very different than today. So it's important that we think about where the youth want to hang out, and that's how you create a really cool district. The other project that we focused on was in Togo. It's the the Togo Innovation Hub. What was interesting about this, the Minister of Innovation wanted to focus on creating Africa's tech district, West Africa's tech district. And the biggest challenge of Africa is every single country, almost every single country, is always focusing on the shiny buildings, the big campus, but they don't really think of the programming. They don't really think that for an innovation district to survive, you need to create an ecosystem of entrepreneurs, venture capital, accelerators, festivals, experiences. It's the software that powers the place, not just the hardware. The second it becomes a real estate project and you're just looking for tenants, you've killed your project. It's just a product that will get obsolete and outdated and people will move to the next cool thing. But when you create a culture, that's really when you're creating a sustainable long-term investment. Many other projects we've worked on, and I'll go a bit faster on these. Medellin in Colombia was one of the most violent cities in the world. Everyone knows Pablo Escobar, but they really put a vision to transform its identity into becoming an innovation hub. They focused on libraries and community centers. And they turned those spaces into a safe space for parents to take their kids, to go there, to study, to learn. And then through that, there was a ripple effect. Industries started to plug in within the vicinity. And Medellin's transformation is really something we need to learn from, because today Medellin is not known for its violence, but it's known to be one of the world's best digital nomad hubs. And that's quite important. And then Corvin Sitani in Budapest, Hungary, turned the neglected site, abandoned warehouses, and also created a lifestyle around companies, entrepreneurship. And it's important to not neglect abandoned real estate. We can't think of these products as just relics, but they actually become places that could be reinvented. So if it's an abandoned train station, how can you turn that into a very cool fitness center, right? So there's, we don't always have to start from scratch. We could take existing districts and regenerate them. So that in Budapest was a pretty important one. And just to focus a little bit on the global citizen of the world. Today with mobility, people are moving wherever they want to, really. It's insane. Today, people can plug into Uzbekistan because of it. You don't really need a visa. I have a Lebanese passport. I was able to come here with no visa. It's a very big deal, and I'm very happy about that. But what's important is, if you look at places like Bali, Dubai, Tulum, Medellin, people move there because they can plug and play. So for the UAE, 2 hours away from Dubai, in a very beautiful nature scenic area called Fujairah, we've been focusing on creating an innovation village, which would be the UAE's first creator coast. The challenge with the UAE is the weather at times, but actually Fujairah is 10 degrees cooler than Dubai. And we wanted to create a small village something very simple. It doesn't have to be expensive. Using modular construction, you can create these villages very quickly. But the goal here was that the people moving to the village will add their touch. Again, I don't know if you're familiar with Burning Man and Black Rock City, but they create a pop-up city for 80,000 people in 7 days. And then there's a leave no trace, right? So construction technology is allowing us to create this infrastructure for very low cost, but it's the people that actually make the place. So the vision here was that people would lease the land and they would create these experimental architectural prototypes, and that slowly starts creating a very fun place to be in that has soul, is less corporate than what Dubai is. And this is quite a secretive project, but we were tasked to create the world's first creative island destination. Now, what does that mean? This is an island that has zero infrastructure, has nothing. It's in one of the world's most delicate natural environments. And the goal here was to create a series of villages as a journey that one transcends through and passes through. They wanted a mix of Ibiza meets Bali meets Mykonos meets Burning Man. What does that mean? That's the biggest challenge when you're trying to copy all these places. But in reality, this is a place that was designed to inspire creatives, to discover their purpose, and to start their company. And the goal was that some of those people would want to stay and build roots and create this island. We focused a lot on festivals. We focused a lot on art installations. Unfortunately, due to geopolitics, this project is on hold. But the goal here also was it was very light infrastructure, that we do not dig foundations into the land. We regenerate the environment, and we really think of the experiences. And with that, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Marwan. Really, really interesting stuff. And I should also say, I mean, I didn't realize that you'd been involved with the Manchester regeneration as well, the Media City there. And I think, from a UK point of view, we always point to Manchester as the very best example of the power of creative industries to turn a city around, because we're talking about a city that was completely blighted by post-industrial decline in the 1970s and 80s, really high unemployment rates and poverty. And now it's a city that's one of the most vibrant creative centers in Europe. Its creative economy is, I'm not sure, but billions and billions of dollars every year. And that's all been done through this concerted policy approach and placemaking, bringing together the creatives and the infrastructure and the investments and things like Media City and the BBC, as Marwan was talking about. So really, really great examples. Thank you, Marwan. Okay, our next speaker is Dimitri Fedyunin from the ECM Group. So Dimitri, at the ECM Group, your work looks very closely at cultural tourism. How does cultural tourism and how do events shape markets? We know that these sorts of initiatives can be very powerful drivers for regional development. Uzbekistan's an obvious example where cultural tourism plays a huge role, not only in development but also in destination branding. Based on your experience and insights, especially your work in Central Asia, can you say a little bit about how you feel cultural tourism can become a driver of regional development, and what are the key factors that are required to make this happen?
Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Michael. ECM Group that I represent is a German urbanist and engineering company, so we are not the most creative people. However, I have to share one example where we used the cultural heritage as the main guideline for development region investment program. So this is this is example of master plan for Miraki. Miraki village is somewhere in far Uzbekistan on south of Samarkand in the beautiful valley surrounded by mountains. So first of all, what is master plan? It's not just a city map. This is really a long-term strategy for development of territory. So our approach is to assess existing activity, then evaluate the most promising potential and the main development guidelines for next 10 years, focus on the main points for the investment, public and private, provide some technical layouts, technical approach, architectural, urban planning, give some forms to that, then give the price and how much does it cost, and propose in the end the investment program. So first step during evaluation of economic activity in the region, we immediately observed that tourism having already a leading role in the local economy. For city 8,000 of residents, we observe 660 people per year of visitors. And at the same time, the touristic infrastructure were underdeveloped with a lot of gaps. So we selected immediately the tourism as the main driver for economical development in the region. It was quite obvious. What is attractive in the region? At the first glance, we see that visitors were impressed by local nature, mountains, lake, but after deeper analysis, we realized that very much attractive features are connected to the local culture and the tradition. So it's local hospitality of the people, the farm visiting, local markets, food, very rich Muslim spiritual environment, festivals, man craftsmanship, and by this way we deducted that the cultural heritage is the main guide of our master plan. As touristic flow structure, we realized immediately that the most part of tourists are local from surrounded regions. We classified them per year, per age and family category and main touristic activity in order to evaluate the growing potential. So then for each kind of activity we assessed the growing potential and we calculated that this area is able to receive 670,000 people per year more, so practically double the capacity, with opening touristic markets for interregional and international visitors, so reprofiling a little bit the visitors type. Of course, if we made this conclusion, we should assess the transport connectivity, and we realized that it was sufficient just with a minor improvement in informational support and navigation to underline for future stakeholders, especially authorities. So we identified, depending on tourism main directions, we identified all kind of activity that we can have in the region, both the existing and some new touristic products. And based on that, you see on the central area, we assessed the needs in accommodation, installations, and infrastructure to make it function. And this becomes the foundation for our investment program, the list and quantified list of those accommodations. As well, we know that we deducted that hospitality industry includes over 40 types of economic activity, service-oriented and closely interconnected, and demand on tourism will boost the dynamics of development for all those activity sectors. So this message, I think, is clear. We just try to be creative. So tourism is stimulating other sectors of economic, being stimulated itself by the investment program, which is the carrot. But if we seriously want the system function, we have to give him this carrot. So as well, we assessed the other sector of economics in interaction with tourism. We created the program as well of activity and utility and facility for other sector. Just on this slide you have the example of agricultural development and craftsmanship development program. As proposed measure, first of all, we created the detailed map of all attractive features in the sector and propose touristic routes for that. Using urban development analysis, we created the strategy of area zoning. In more detailed scale, per functional zoning, we created more detailed schemes, which were finished with detailed zoning and master layout with architectural forms and urban strategy. So our approach suppose preserving of a traditional architectural and visual style. So we kept the concept of mahala. This is the traditional Uzbek district, which is key factor is autonomous social community with corresponding infrastructure, mosque, markets, central square, and a high-density district of 1-2-story buildings. And we also developed the code design code to keep historical environment and traditional view. So this is just a render of central place. Of course, we elaborated transport scheme, preliminary design for engineering utilities, electricity, water supply, and so on. We divided a development program on 6 stages. First stage was the creation of new districts in order to fill in the gap of existing touristic infrastructure from one hand, and from other hand, to create a powerful, attractive point to stimulate both investors and visitors to come here. Second stage was redevelopment of historical center of Meraki, and then after stage 3, it was progressive improvement around the area with implementing of different facility and infrastructure. We created the detailed schedule for 10 years for each land plot. Key project parameters. What is important that the total investment is around 700 million euro, which is not big, but for this kind of village, it's quite good investment. With 39 ready to investment plot, fully defined. The public participation is quite low, 28%. It's due to the fact that we tried to include the maximum of infrastructure in the private lots to facilitate the public decision. Here on the left, you see that the main share of investment is, of course, in hospitality and hotel, followed by roads, infrastructure, commercial, and so on. And globally, the investment form take the wave pattern, because in the starting period, we need to create a really powerful attraction and to mark the considerable change to transform the attractivity of the region. So second period is more calm, that we consolidate and adapt already implemented solutions, implement the lesson learned, and the third big investment wave is more dedicated to private investment that comes on already prepared area, more attractive and with lower public effort. And this slide just summarized the previously explained this scenario. So based on cultural tourism guideline, we produce master plan, which is investment program creation. Next step, we implement this investment program that will stimulate existing and new touristic activity, interconnected sector boosting, and economic and social development in our area. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks very much, Dimitri. Sounds very exciting. I can't wait to visit. Good. Our final panelist then is Otabek Suleimanov, who's the CEO of the Stihia Festival. Now, for any of you who might not be from Uzbekistan or who aren't familiar with the Stihia Festival, it's an incredible cultural and musical festival that takes place in Moynak. And Moynak is a city which used to be a bustling port city on the banks of the Aral Sea. And it had a very thriving economy based around maritime trade and fishing. But as the Aral Sea has shrunk and shrunk, Moynak has just become this abandoned city in the desert. Well, not abandoned, it's still populated by people, but the economic opportunities have gone away because the sea has shrunk. And Otabek has brought a music festival there, and it's really become a phenomenal case study in how a festival can transform a place. It's not just a great example of a wonderful artistic festival with great music and great events and so on, but it's also really transformed how Moynak is viewed, it's transformed tourism, it's transformed investment. So Otabek, can you maybe say a little bit from your perspective running Stihia, how do you feel that what do you feel the role of festivals is in this piece? How can festivals contribute to a country's broader investment climate?
Thank you, Michael. Well, first of all, thank you for the invitation, and thank you for everyone in this in this hall coming and supporting us. Yes, here is. It started as a chaotic event about 2017-18 in the tiny shores of what used to be the Aral Sea. It gradually grew because of the passion and enthusiasm. It is still based on passion and enthusiasm with some of the support of the government. As you can see, there are some of the figures on the slide. It held annually at the end of May. This year we took a leap year because of the, we got tired, to be honest. The festival started growing very fast, quite often dubbed as the Burning Man of Central Asia. And yeah, this is quite an interesting event going on in the very... We always say that this is a conventional, usual festival, but which is taking place in a very unusual place, promoting some form of the dark tourism, industrial tourism, in very niche format. I wouldn't say that the festivals do impact directly on the investment climate, if I get the question right, Michael, but I do believe that this is a good instrument to instill trust, to be the foundation, how the cultures are built, how they emerge. My strong belief is that investments, they don't come because of the laws or because of the incentives. Well, to put it another way, not because only of that. They also come because of the trust. And that trust is such a sensitive and delicate thing. It's quite difficult to answer where and how trust is built. I mean, why do people invest into Dubai more than to other countries in the region, for example? Is it because of Burj Khalifa? Or is it because of Coca-Cola Stadium? Or is it because Sheikh Zayed did something right 40 years ago by allowing and giving more freedom? And because we've been in this country for a long time, and I can see that I think it was mainly one of the freedom part that made the festivals available and possible, the projects like these 10 years ago probably. It didn't happen because we felt that we wanted to impact investment or because the government was supporting us. Actually, it was the other way around at that time. But I think it was just a passion and belief that we have to do something interesting in that part of the world. Gathering people together, playing music at night. You know, we have a saying that see you in, at Burning Man they say see you in dust. At Stichia we say see you in sand, because the sand is the great equalizer. You know, you can see people coming from different areas, from public sector, from different regions, from private sector, and nobody really cares who you are or what you say. They just submerge into this chaos. And I think it's about building the image and instilling trust that people are feeling free in this country, and then they create really interesting projects. Like, for example, I think what the ACDF does is one of the greatest parts of creating the country's image globally and instilling again about the trust. Of course, it's about the culture, but at the end, it leads to the like, where are we coming? Are we coming to the country which is open? Are we investing into the country where the incentives work, where the legal laws are stable, they're predictable, and only that? Or maybe it's a country where, you know, different things happen and people do something together to create interesting things. So this is the ship cemetery, actually. There won't be numbers on this slide. This is the ship cemetery, and that was the first time when we were allowed to put a stage on the ship, actually. And it's our ambient stage with the non-dancing music. So many DJs and musical artists globally, actually, they want to come to Stichia and to play at this particular stage, because this is a unique stage. And we have annually something about 500 applications. Half of it is trash. The rest is 50-50. But out of that, some really interesting local and regional artists come up. And he becoming a good catalyst for the promotion of local producers and musicians. That again instills, comes back to the trust. It's the question of like a chicken and hen, Michael. It's that the question, I really like the Dmitry slide with the donkey and that pulls the tourism. I think it should be the looped process. Like you never know which industry pulls starts growing first. There's so many researches whether the culture or economics are the foundation of development, but it turns out that this is the cycled project. Yeah, so that was one of the craziest events when the pouring rain met us and we burnt out everything. So yeah, this is the last slide, and this is our team from the latest festival. And yeah, I don't know if I answered your question, Michael, but I think that festivals, they do contribute to the country's image, culture, and building the trust, which I think is more important for creating friendly investment climate. And by the way, and I was allowed to do that, Michael, by the administration. If any of you guys are here on Friday night, just come over to the train station museum where we are holding a special event. It's a techno event, actually. We're bringing a very interesting acid house duet from London. It's called Paranoid London, with the help of British Council. Thank you for that. And yes, please welcome. That will start at Friday night and with an after party in one of the local underground clubs, where I will be DJing as well. So thank you, and for the invitation. Cheers.
Okay, so if there are any fans of British techno music in the audience, you know what your Friday night will hold. Thank you, Otabek. And yeah, I think really interesting. I think the point you're making about how the different parts of the ecosystem reinforce each other and are looped together is a really good part. Okay, so we have been fairly good with our time management. We have about 20 minutes left for question and answer. So if you can all be having a think about any questions that you would like to ask any of the panelists, all the panelists, any specific panelists about any of the things we've discussed. Just while you're thinking about your questions, maybe I'll just start off with a very quick one, which is it would be great to hear from the panelists briefly about what do you think, which sectors do you think in Uzbekistan hold the greatest growth potential? And I think it would be really interesting if maybe Otabek, Azizbek, from a cultural perspective, what do you think are the biggest sort of cultural sectors that hold the greatest growth potential? Marwan and Dimitri, who focus on urban development and the infrastructure, what do you think are the other sort of, if I can, sort of the secondary infrastructure, what are the big opportunities there, whether it's real estate or transport, what are the big opportunities there? So what are the big growth opportunities? Azizbek?
Well, thank you for question, and there are several areas. I think it's better you switch off the mic.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Sorry. There are several areas which I believe have a great potential in Uzbekistan in terms of further development. Also, in the law there are 15 particular areas and directions, starting from the traditional handicrafts and including design and filmmaking and others. But I believe, based on the activities we do and based on the projects we implement, I see a great potential in traditional applied arts, because we still, I'm coming back to my thesis about the strong tradition, but yes, there is a tradition. There are different regional schools. There are a lot of masters and the families who are still keeping the tradition and producing a beautiful things in a strong technique and high quality. But at the same time, what we are working on now, and we believe that tradition itself, if it's like rooting within the tradition, it can bring the deviation. So what we do is we are trying to bring new design, we are trying to do a new collaborations, we are connecting actually, if we put it simple, we connect our artisans, for example, with some of the renowned designers or artists, and based on what they do together, we in a way elevate the product and put more value on it. I mean, in terms of commercial realization. And so this is one of the areas. But obviously there are a lot, and I believe Otabeyke can tell more about the events area and the beautiful festival they have.
Well, Atabek, if the ACDF answer was traditional applied arts, what would you say is sort of the big growth area from your perspective?
It's certainly the electronic music. We really hope that one day they will cancel the license for the DJs, the requirement, which we think is quite obsolete. But obviously, there's so many facilities in the cities, and maybe that would be an urban part that are still underdeveloped and underused. And I certainly think that this could be one of the ways to grow that. Art, yes, Bukhara Biennale showed exactly that there is a huge potential with the local artists. We know that there were thousands of applications that didn't go through just because of the limitations that the Bukhara Biennale had. That is a sign of the great potential, I think. This is artistic. And we also have a couple of regions that we want to develop, including the Barsa Kelmes salt region that's on the west of the country. That is 100% looks like a Burning Man in Nevada. And that's where we're having this year, actually, the second sub-project of our festival. It's called Yonar. It's completely inspired by the Burning Man principles. Last year, we had 5 installations. This year, we're thinking to bring about 10 installations, and they're completely locally made. So this is, the potential is there. It's just that all the dots should be stitched together. But yes, with the support of public and private sector, I think this is doable.
Yeah, thanks. Really interesting. And so, Marwan, maybe, I mean, from your point of view, from an infrastructure point of view, what do you think are sort of the big opportunities, most immediate opportunities for investment right now?
Yes. I think we have no idea what the world's going to look like 3 to 5 years from now. There's a complete hybridization of everything. AI is a tool that is changing how we live. You can hate it, you can love it, but it's here. It's not going to disappear. And what is the impact of this technology in our physical spaces? When I say hybridization, today you can work where you learn, where you shop. Everything is, the concept of zoning is what killed cities in the 20th century. And we need to throw that away. We need to invent new rules. And you spoke about freedom, and I think absolutely right. The youth want freedom. So what does that mean? It's to encourage entrepreneurship. It's to truly start thinking more of these incubators, accelerators, venture capital, so that the youth, not just the youth, people feel like there's a support system, and the government is supporting them, the private sector is supporting them. They can experiment, they can make mistakes. But I really think, how do we tie digital technology to traditional arts, whether it's textiles, fashion, music, filmmaking, and then bringing it into the physical environment? I think fabrication is so important that it doesn't stick in the virtual realm. We have social media for that, but how can we now connect the virtual to the physical? And I think Uzbekistan can do a great job because it has such a strong foundation with its traditions.
Okay, so from my side, as for cultural heritage and this is not surprising that initiative is always to authority to launch this kind of projects, and we can observe that Uzbekistan has a huge potential, but not only potential, because during last 10-20 years we see a lot of achievements in this area, and with growing trust of the investors, private investors, and financial organizations. I think it will just continue like this. Uzbekistan is on the good way and in the start of the development to go up, to grow, and to success. Thank you.
Thanks, Dimitri. Good. So are there any questions from the audience? Yes. I don't know. Do we have microphones, Severa? Or otherwise, just use your outside voice and we'll hear you.
We are an Italian or international events, entertainment, and communication company. So we're interested in knowing what's being done here to boost this global connectivity. Obviously, because we're interested in being involved. I mean, I am personally based in GCC, Dubai, and Riyadh, and Bahrain, but I'm interested in this area as well. What's being created, if there is anything created beside me trying to talk to all of you guys after this moment, if there's anything being created to boost and attract creative companies to the country.
Okay, Aziz Bek, that sounds like one for you.
So, as I understand, the question is how to bring those creative companies to the country and to how we encourage this international cooperation, basically, how we bring international business to the country. This is exactly with the way what we do on the state level and on the private level. And I think that within our discussion there is in a way nice parallels of what Otebek do and what we do, because this is the good example of the private initiative, and there are of course several projects we are realizing, and based on the specificity and the features of this project we obviously bring that expertise from outside. And again, if we come back to the Bukhara Biennial, obviously within the organization and within the preparation for the event there were several let's say teams and companies which we brought from outside to work with us and to bring this expertise. But what is important and what is the main goal for us is to in a way localize it to the certain amount, because we want to bring it from outside, but at the same time we want really to raise what we have here and to raise the expertise here and bring allow the local companies to grow and work. Again, just a simple example of these art pieces. The 70 of them were produced here with local companies, local producers, local artisans, and it's a good example with the help of some international teams and collectives. And this process is working also on the let's say a global stage. If we are, as you are from Italy, we are participating in the Venice Biennale from the 2021, and If the first pavilion was almost fully produced by the international team, the last two were fully produced by the Uzbek teams, and I mean Uzbek artists, Uzbek curator, Uzbek producers, of course with some of the support of that companies with which we work in Venice and Italy. So that's how we want to balance and how we want to make our cooperation stronger and at the same time support local.
Yeah, I just wanted to add what Azizbek has just mentioned. In addition to that, there are certain conditions that the public sector has created from the government, including the creative park that was mentioned in the ACDF's presentation, that created phenomenal conditions for the creative companies to enter the country and to set up the business. It's if that was one of the part of your questions, yeah.
The conditions of the creative park implies the incentives and these tax preferences not only for the local company, for the international one. So I'd advise you to have a word with the director of the creative park who is with us now. So I will give you the context.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, please.
Thank you. Very interesting and many questions about creative parks and how really we can attract emerging investments. Because I'm also already 7 years before I created the Silk Road Land edutainment, first in the world Oriental edutainment park. And you know, 7 years I knocked to many investment funds and many private businessmen, but still they cannot trust, is it possible or not? But it is also very important that to know that Disneyland all very interested of my project. And Walter Baji's company now made business plan and everything. Also, I write for books for this entertainment park, edutainment, because in our park, Oriental cannot, you know, be heroes like Spider-Man or SpongeBob. Of course, it should be others, Oriental heroes. So that's why I write the books, because I'm Doctor of Arts and History, and I write the books which published in Great Britain, Adventure on Great Silk Road. So it is a lot of effort still today, and we already discussed with New Tashkent. They give us a land, they give us everything. You know, investments still think how will be guarantee and trust. You know, that is important because our government don't give any guarantee. It's agreed, absolutely. But what the way you are doing with investments, how we can attract everything done. Walter Baji's group, they make feasibility study. It's a main consulting of the Disneyland. So everything done. But still we cannot attract a big investment fund, you know, with trust and it's because it's franchise. Also, Qatar very much interested of this. So how, which way we should to go? Please, give us suggestions.
Okay, suggestions on how to attract investment.
Yes.
Is there a member of the panel who'd like to, Marwan? And just I'm a little
I'm just
bit
gonna,
wary of time, so just
yeah, I'll keep this very short. I think the biggest problem is that we work in silos. There's not enough communication in the process of executing a project. What's very important is from day one, when you create the vision, you're engaging with investors. So from vision, capital to execution. Investors don't want to invest in something that might work, might not work. So you need to bring them from day zero. I know you're going to be like, how? But you have to co-create the project. I think there's a big gap today from the vision to the execution, and 98% of mega projects fail because of that. So maybe that's one of my answer, at least, is to integrate the investors in your ideation.
Good, thank you. I'm afraid I don't think we have much time for any more questions. We've just got 1 minute left. If anybody is interested in the investment opportunities, as Isbek said, we've got the head of the Creative Park here. Hassan, you want to just stand up and wave around so people can see? So please do speak to him at the end of the session if you're interested in finding out more. But I think we've run out of time, so I'll just have to say thank you again, all of you, for coming. I hope you found it an interesting session. Thank you so much to all of our panelists, Azizbek, Marwan, Dimitri, Otabek, for sharing your time and expertise. I said at the start that the panel was sort of looking at this issue of creative industries from very different perspectives. We have public policy, we have independent creative entrepreneurs, we have looking at urban infrastructure, we have looking at sort of building tourist infrastructure and so on. And I think one of the things that the session has made clear, and Otabek, you articulated this really nicely in your bit, was about how you need to have all of these bits working together in order to build a really cohesive and strong creative economy ecosystem. You need the regulation and the frameworks and the access to finance from the policy side. You need, obviously, the creatives themselves to do the work. You need the urban infrastructure. You need the investment in transport and hotels and all of that thing working together in order to drive growth. And I think that that's come across really, really strongly for me. So thank you all again, and hope you have a good rest of your TIFF. Thank you. Okay.
It's partially open. Under execution. Several hotels are because it was 3 years ago. Master plans.
It's okay. Oh, thank you so much.